There is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. The Twilight Zone wasn't just a television series, it was a revolution disguised as prime-time entertainment. Beneath its black and white surface pulsed something raw and rebellious, a philosophical battleground between imagination and censorship. Rod Serling's eerie creation broke television's unwritten rules. It defied advertisers who feared controversy. From eerie coincidences to prophetic scripts, from hostile executives to visionary rebellion, here are 20 weird facts about the Twilight Zone. Fact number 20. Rod Serling never wanted to make science fiction. He wanted to tell the truth. But the truth was forbidden. The television networks of the 1950s shredded every script that mentioned racism, corruption, or war. Serling's dramas about justice were gutted by executives obsessed with sponsor comfort, so he outsmarted them. He cloaked human truth in alien masks. He replaced politicians with robots and racists with Martians. They couldn't censor what they didn't understand. The Twilight Zone became his loophole, his rebellion. Every monster was a metaphor. Every twist ending was a slap at hypocrisy. In a world ruled by fear, he built a show that questioned everything, safely hidden in shadows. It wasn't just entertainment. It was protest disguised as fantasy. Through it, Serling found his weapon, morality wrapped in mystery. Fact number 19. The series almost died before it was born. The first episode, Where Is Everybody, was so strange that CBS panicked. It had no villain, no explosion, no romance. Just one man wandering through a deserted town, losing his mind. Executives called it confusing and depressing. They begged Serling to make it cheerful. He refused. He said that loneliness was the greatest horror of all. When the episode aired in 1959, viewers were spellbound. Letters flooded in praising its dread and silence. The network had no choice but to continue. That gamble defined the show forever. The Twilight Zone didn't promise comfort. It promised reflection. It didn't scare with monsters. It scared with meaning. Fact number 18. What began as imagination soon became prophecy. The Twilight Zone predicted the world we live in now. In the brain center at Whipple's, a ruthless boss replaces his workers with machines. It was 1964. Today, that story has become daily news. Factories filled with robots, workers replaced by algorithms. Serling warned what would happen when humanity worshipped efficiency over empathy. He saw it decades early. Even his story about citizens under constant surveillance echoes the modern internet age. What audiences thought was science fiction was actually premonition. The Twilight Zone was not futuristic. It was diagnostic, showing humanity its own disease before it spread too far. Fact number 17. Those piercing notes that define the show, that hypnotic da-da-da-da, were never planned. The producers had hired French composer Bernard Herrmann for the first season. But CBS wanted cheaper options. They scoured music libraries and found a forgotten piece by another French composer, Marius Constant. It was eerie, yet rhythmic, and when layered with a second track, it became a melody that haunted television forever. That accidental discovery saved the network money and gave pop culture one of its most recognizable themes. Decades later, even people who never watched the show hum that sound when something strange happens. It didn't just open episodes. It opened a gateway into the unknown. Fact number 16. Behind the chilling stories and cosmic landscapes was a shoestring budget. The Twilight Zone was filmed mostly on small sound stages, using props recycled from westerns and detective dramas. A single corridor could become a spaceship one week and a haunted hotel the next. Actors often changed costumes mid-shoot to double as extras. The fog that gave the show its dreamlike atmosphere was pumped in from cheap stage machines that overheated constantly. Yet from these scraps, Serling and his team created universes. The series proved that creativity doesn't need wealth, it needs imagination and courage. When money failed, then artistry took over. The Twilight Zone wasn't built with dollars. It was built with vision and defiance. Fact number 15. Rod Serling's greatest battle wasn't with monsters or madness, it was with the sponsors. In the early days of television, cigarette companies and food brands controlled everything. They dictated what could be said, what could be shown, even how long the camera could linger on fear. When Serling wrote stories about greed or moral decay, sponsors complained. They wanted ads, not allegories. But Serling refused to surrender. He hid social critique in parables. A story about a greedy salesman became a tale of a cursed watch. A warning about racial prejudice appeared as aliens judging humanity. His defiance turned every episode into a coded message. The Twilight Zone wasn't a product, it was rebellion in black and white. It exposed hypocrisy beneath the glow of commercials, proving that art could slip through corporate chains and still speak truth. Fact number 14. Many of the show's most haunting episodes were born from Rod Serling's insomnia. He wrote through the night, chain-smoking in dim light, his mind consumed by fear and wonder. Sometimes he wrote 3 scripts in a single night. The darkness outside bled into his stories: paranoia, regret, guilt, and redemption. His wife once said the scripts read like nightmares he exorcised onto paper. On-set crew members noticed his exhaustion, his voice cracking under pressure, yet he refused to rest. Every week demanded a new story, a new world, a new moral lesson. The result wasn't just a TV schedule, it was spiritual labor. The Twilight Zone became a reflection of Serling's mind, restless, brilliant, and haunted. Sleep was a luxury he gave up so that others could dream. Fact number 13. Guest stars who appeared on The Twilight Zone often found their careers transformed or cursed. William Shatner before Star Trek starred in 2 episodes that defined his image, one with a gremlin on a plane, another with a cursed fortune-telling machine. Both became television legends. But other actors weren't so lucky. Some roles were so intense they struggled to find work afterward. Actress Anne Francis said her episode, "The after-hours about mannequins coming to life left her terrified of department stores for years." Others said the eerie set lighting and dead silence between takes felt supernatural. It wasn't superstition. It was the show's strange energy. The Twilight Zone didn't just launch careers. It changed those who entered it. Once you'd walked its corridors, you never truly came back. Fact number 12. Not every episode had a happy ending on set. During production, directors faced constant battles with time and money. Episodes were shot in as little as 3 days, often under blinding lights that baked the studio into unbearable heat. Equipment malfunctioned, lights exploded, and sound failures ruined takes. Some directors left the series altogether unable to handle the pace. Yet those who stayed became legends. They learned to create beauty from chaos, crafting atmospheric tension out of tight corridors and dim bulbs. The actors adapted too, sweating, improvising, pushing through exhaustion. That struggle became part of the magic. The Twilight Zone wasn't polished. It was raw and real, its imperfections adding to its unease. Each frame carried the scent of hard labor and human endurance, proof that even the strange needs sweat to exist. Fact number 11. By the 3rd season, Rod Serling began to fade. He was tired, not of the show, but of the fight. Network executives demanded lighter tones, simpler plots, happier endings. Serling wanted to explore death, morality, and war. CBS wanted more aliens and time travel. The creative war grew bitter. He spent hours rewriting scripts that were rejected, turning sharp stories into diluted episodes. Still, he poured his soul into narration, those chilling monologues that framed each episode like sermons. Even when others wrote the scripts, his voice carried the vision. It wasn't just narration, it was guidance, a whisper from the other side. By the end, The Twilight Zone had become his confession booth. Each intro and outro wasn't just for viewers, it was for Serling himself, the man trapped between imagination and exhaustion. Fact number 10. The Twilight Zone wasn't filmed in a vacuum. Every episode carried the tension of a crew stretched to breaking point. The pace was brutal, the budget small, the pressure constant. Actors memorized pages of dialogue in hours, not days. Lighting teams transformed bare stages into alien landscapes with smoke mirrors and desperation. Yet through the exhaustion, something magical formed, a raw creative pulse that made the impossible feel real. Viewers never saw the sweat on set, they saw only wonder. Go ahead and like and subscribe, because behind every classic episode was a small army battling time fatigue and fear to bring the strange to life. The Twilight Zone wasn't television, it was survival disguised as art. And that struggle still hums beneath its black and white glow. Fact number 9. Rod Serling wasn't alone in building this world between worlds. He gathered a league of literary minds whose work would echo through generations. Writers like Richard Matheson and Charles Beaumont didn't just pen episodes, they shaped the soul of the series. Matheson's ideas about paranoia and shifting reality influenced decades of horror and science fiction. Beaumont wrote stories even as illness slowly destroyed him, his imagination burning brighter with every script. Together they created tales that slipped between sanity and symbolism. Their words became lessons hidden behind fantasy. The Twilight Zone wasn't one man's voice, it was a chorus of prophets whispering through static. When their stories aired, the world looked different, sharper, darker, more human. Fact number 8. The show's production schedule was relentless, and it left scars. Serling's crew joked that they lived inside their own Twilight Zone. Sleep vanished, time-warped days blurred. Prop masters reused the same alien suits, repainting them between episodes. One actor said he performed 3 separate roles in the same week, wearing different hats in the same room. The studio corridors were lined with leftover set pieces. A desert one day, a spaceship the next. Yet, despite the exhaustion, the creative energy never died. The chaos became fuel. The Twilight Zone taught them that imagination thrives under pressure. The less they had, the more they created. Every frame became proof that limits don't kill art, they define it. Fact number 7. One of the eeriest truths about the Twilight Zone was how often it predicted real events. The episode Steel imagined a world where human fighters were replaced by robots. Decades later, the same theme appeared in modern boxing simulations and AI-driven combat sports. In another story, a man stranded on an asteroid dreamed of human companionship, eerily echoing the loneliness of future astronauts. Fans called it coincidence. Serling called it inevitability. He believed humanity's fears would always repeat in new forms. The Twilight Zone didn't invent prophecy. It simply revealed patterns we refuse to see. Watching it now feels less like nostalgia and more like warning, a mirror still speaking across time. Fact number 6. Some of the strangest moments happened not on screen, but behind it. During one episode titled Night Call, actress Gladys Cooper delivered her lines beside a ringing phone that never answered. On playback, the sound team swore they heard a second voice, faint and distant, not part of the recording. The reel was checked again and again, but the whisper remained. It sounded like someone calling from far away. The engineers destroyed the tape after that. Stories like this spread through the crew until people joked the set itself was haunted. Maybe it was exhaustion or imagination, or maybe something else watched from the shadows between takes. After all, the series was built on one rule. In the Twilight Zone, nothing is impossible. Fact number 5. Rod Serling was not afraid to challenge the darkest corners of humanity. His episode, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, showed how fear and paranoia could destroy a community faster than any alien ever could. It became a mirror held up to Cold War America, where neighbors suspected each other and trust evaporated overnight. When the episode aired, teachers used it in classrooms to explain mass hysteria and prejudice. The Twilight Zone wasn't fiction pretending to be real. It was reality wearing a mask. Serling said once that the only real monsters are the ones who look back at you in the mirror. Decades later, the message still cuts deep. The aliens never landed. We brought the fear ourselves. Fact number 4. Filming technology constantly failed the crew, forcing them to invent new tricks on the spot. One day, a camera jammed during a key scene, so director Douglas Hise shot the rest of the take using a hand-cranked backup that barely worked. Another time, a fog machine overheated, filling the set with smoke so thick actors vanished mid-line. Instead of stopping production, they used it in the story. That's why the Twilight Zone looks so dreamlike. Half of that mist came from broken machines and desperation. The chaos became the show's atmosphere, its strange beauty born from malfunctions. Every shadow, every wisp of smoke carried the ghost of an accident turned into art. Fact number 3. The censorship battles never truly ended. In one episode titled The Encounter, starring George Takei, the story hinted at guilt and racism tied to World War II. CBS executives panicked. They pulled it from reruns, claiming it was too disturbing for television. The episode disappeared for decades, existing only in rumor. When it resurfaced years later, viewers finally saw what Serling had warned against. The past never dies. It hides waiting for someone to face it. The Twilight Zone did not just push boundaries, it crossed them at great cost. Every banned story was proof that truth still frightened those who feared to look too closely. Fact number 2. Rod Serling's voice became the heartbeat of the series, but many forget he hated performing. He was shy in front of the camera and loathed reading his own scripts aloud. Yet the studio insisted his words had weight and audiences trusted him. He recorded most narrations in one take, standing in near darkness with only a small light on his face. That calm tone wasn't confidence, it was control. His delivery became legend. The man who fought networks now spoke directly to millions, guiding them through dimensions of thought and fear. Serling didn't act, he warned. His presence turned each episode into ritual and his voice into prophecy. Fact number 1. By the final season, the magic was fading. The budgets were smaller, the schedules tighter, and the studio demanded color episodes. Serling resisted. He said that black and white was part of the spell. It stripped away distraction and turned the world into myth. CBS ignored him and canceled the series in 1964. Yet the show refused to die. Reruns resurrected it in late-night hours, inspiring generations of filmmakers from Spielberg to Peele. The Twilight Zone became eternal, not because it lasted long, but because it spoke truths that never aged. Every rerun felt like a warning written yesterday. The zone never closes. It only waits. Bonus fact. The Twilight Zone movie in 1983 carried the show's name, but not its luck. During filming of a helicopter scene, tragedy struck. Actor Vic Morrow and 2 children were killed in an on-set explosion gone wrong. The disaster shook Hollywood, changing safety laws forever. Serling had passed years earlier, yet many said it felt like his final warning made real. Fiction had become fate. The accident cast a shadow over the legacy, but also reinforced its message. Hubris and fear always carry a price. The Twilight Zone had warned us from the start. Cross the line between control and chaos, and the zone will answer. The Twilight Zone began as rebellion and ended as revelation. It showed that imagination can expose truth better than journalism, that fear can teach morality better than sermons. Rod Serling turned a simple anthology into philosophy on film. His ghosts never left. They live in reruns and echoes in every story that asks, what if? Because every time we question reality, we step once more into the Twilight Zone. If you love learning what truly happened behind the camera, hit like and subscribe, because next time we'll reveal more secrets from the worlds where imagination meets madness. The Twilight Zone is calling. Step closer if you dare.